Brooks is a brand that seems to have no middle ground. People either love them or hate them, and usually you can tell by looking at a shoe that it's a Brooks shoe by the high drop, the slightly narrow fit, but the high quality materials. So what happens when they break that mold? Meet the Hyperion Max 2. What's up everyone? Welcome to Rad Dad Bod TV. I'm Eric McIntyre, aka Rad Dad Bod, and here we review running shoes. Today we're going to be reviewing the Brooks Hyperion Max 2. Before we dive into anything, you may notice that there's some timestamps in the description below. Feel free to jump around throughout the video to the sections that interest you most, but when you get a second, I would sure appreciate if you came back and watched the full video, as I put a lot of time and effort into making these as educational and comprehensive as possible. I always appreciate the likes, the comments, and the subscriptions as well, so if you haven't done that already, please take a second and do so. Now we're going to talk about the intended use and price point of the shoe here in a second, but first, disclaimers and disclosures. I bought this shoe with my own money, but I did get a store discount through my local running store, Utah Run. I've produced content for them in the past, but I'm not currently contracted or obligated to make any such videos for them. This is just a shoe that I really wanted to try out, and I did not have brand connections with, so I went and bought it myself. As such, no one gets to watch this review beforehand. These thoughts are entirely my own, as with any of my reviews. Now with that out of the way, let's talk about the price and intended use of the shoe. This shoe comes in at $180, which is a little bit on the higher end, but is not super untypical for a speed-oriented shoe with some type of plate and super foam. To give you an idea, I believe the Endorphin Speed 4, which is Saucony's closest competitor to this shoe, comes in around $170, as does the Asics Magic Speed, which is another good comparison to this shoe. So while it is on the slightly higher end of that range, it is still within the general zone. As far as intended use of this shoe, I actually reached out to some Brooks employees to get a general feel, because it is more of a max cushion than a lot of these kind of speed day plated trainers. However, it is not kind of your max cushion oriented long run shoe. In fact, the intended use of this shoe is for speed work and speed sessions, as stated by Brooks and their website as well. As such, that's how we're going to be evaluating the shoe in our conversation today. Now diving into the specs of the shoe, this shoe comes in at 9.2 ounces in a men's size 9, which I will say is a little bit on the higher end for a speed-oriented shoe. Most shoes in this category are going to be kind of in that 7, maybe at the most kind of the mid 8 ounce range, and so you're getting a little bit of excess weight because this is, again, a little bit of a max cushion shoe. Speaking of that cushion, you have 37 millimeters in the heel and 31 millimeters in the forefoot for a 6 millimeter heel to toe drop. So it is more of that medium drop, which if you're used to Brooks, typically they run in the 10 to 12 millimeter range and are considered a high drop. But the Hyperion line in particular, with the Hyperion 2, Hyperion Max 2, and I believe the Hyperion Elite, all kind of come in that 6 or mid drop zone range. From a fit perspective, this shoe runs true to size, at least lengthwise. I did not have any issues with my normal 10.5. And as far as how it fits throughout the shoe, I would say that the fit is pretty standard in the toe box and the heel, with a slightly snug, not necessarily narrow though, midfoot, as I did find that the shoe was fairly accommodating overall. Not necessarily for wide-footed runners themselves, but definitely for a Brooks shoe, it runs a little bit wider than maybe like the Ghost or the Glycerin. Moving on to the upper, we have an engineered mesh and a fully gusseted mesh tongue. Now for me, the upper is the high point of this shoe. I really like what they did here with the engineered mesh. It's very breathable. The tongue being elastic and that mesh material makes it very flexible, but it actually locks down really well. Sometimes with these elastic tongues, if they are kind of built into the upper, then they don't restrict or keep your foot locked in place, and that leads to shifting. And that's not the case with this shoe. I found that no matter what speed I was running, I had phenomenal lockdown overall, and I didn't even have to do a runner's knot. The other thing that I like is, despite having kind of this mesh throughout the shoe has a really good structured heel cup or heel counter. You have the flare so you can get that little extra cushion and you're not going to get the Achilles rubbing, but there's a lot of structure here, and it's not so rigid that it's going to cause any hot spots, but instead it just keeps you really locked into the shoe, again doubling down on some superior lockdown overall. The upper is not overwhelming. I don't think the weight of the shoe is coming from the upper, but it is not necessarily like a super lightweight mesh compared to some of the other shoes on the market nowadays. and it's definitely not to be compared to the upper that they have on the Hyperion Elite 4, which is almost like a spider web. This is more of a traditional mesh, which again is one of my favorite aspects of the shoe. I just think it works, it's breathable, but it gives you the support and structure that you need. Now moving on to the midsole, which is probably what most people want to hear about, we have a DNA Flash V2, which is a nitrogen infused EVA foam from my understanding. And then you also have a Speedvault plastic plate, which runs through the shoe and can be seen through the outsole. Now a lot of people have been critical of Brooks over the last few years and their resistance to using PEBA in their shoes for specifically their speed day options or their racing options. And I completely understand where people are coming from. PEBA has kind of dominated the racing market as of late. And really, like when you hear PEBA, there's this very responsive, very like bouncy sensation that you kind of picture in your mind. And while I understand that that is where the market is going, the majority of the market seems to like a softer foam, that is not what you're going to get in the shoe, and I don't necessarily think that is a bad thing. With less and less kind of firmer foam options out there on the market, the DNA Flash V2 nitrogen infused foam is fairly firm, and I don't want to say stiff, but it definitely did take some miles to kind of loosen it up a little bit. What this does though is it gives you the sensation of ground feel and really allows you to pop off of the ground as opposed to sinking into the foam consistently and kind of falling asleep in the shoe. But this is still a pretty much max cushion shoe, so you're getting a lot of support underfoot. So really, if you look at the shoe, it's going to be very, very versatile. And I did find that the foam is very versatile for a variety of runs because you get the stack, but you also get the propulsion of the shoe with that rocker geometry as well as the plate and the stiffer foam or firmer foam overall. Now, candidly, while this shoe is good at a lot of paces, I did find that it wasn't necessarily great at any one pace. So I think this shoe would do really, really good in a rotation where you maybe have like your easy day shoe and then you have this shoe for a lot of the other things. So whether that be longer runs, speed work, like interval sessions, but also more like threshold tempo style sessions, this is going to be a little bit of a tweener. So it's not going to be the best long run shoe out there. It's not going to be the best speed work shoe out there, but it can handle the rigors of both, which a lot of shoes can only stick in kind of one workout category. I think my favorite type of run with this shoe was really kind of that long run with some faster paces built in, because you get the support underfoot for those longer runs. But again, like I said, you're not going to fall asleep in the shoe. You're going to be able to really propel yourself forward when you do want to pick up the pace. And so having a little bit of firmness in that midsole allows you to propel yourself, which is nice. I took it out on kind of a ladder workout today and it felt great. And I took it out on a long run with some faster paces towards the end on Saturday. Also felt great overall. I don't think this is going to be a good easy day shoe. Sometimes if you take kind of a lightweight speed oriented shoe like the Hyperion 2 out on an easy run, you may just like a lightweight option that's going to kind of keep you going if your easy runs are kind of an hour or less. With a plate in the shoe and the firmness of the foam, I just don't think it's going to be what most people are looking for nowadays in that easy run pace. But the shoe can, and it is stable enough to go at really any pace that you may choose. And that's something that I also appreciate with this shoe. The width of the shoe, again, it's a little bit wider than most traditional Brooks while maintaining a slightly lower drop. So I did find that this shoe is very, very stable and is going to be friendly and could be a good racing option actually for those who have stability needs. I know the Hyperion 2 comes with the GTS option, so you can add stability guide rails basically, and I can't remember if the Hyperion Max 2 has that option as well. But overall, it's a stable shoe because of that firmness of the foam. You're not going to be rolling in so much, where some of the other PEBA-based foams can be very, very unstable depending on how they design the midsole geometry. I am curious what this shoe would feel like if it was PEBA. It would probably be something closer to like the Hoka Skyward X, maybe the Mizuno Neo Vista, or even the New Balance Super Comp Trainer, which all those shoes tend to feel more like long marathon distance shoes. And I don't love them because of the weight for like shorter, faster intervals. Again, this shoe feels like it sits somewhere between like the Endorphin Speed and maybe a Super Comp Trainer, where like you get a little bit of the best of both worlds there. Now from an outsole perspective, you have this strategic rubber is what they call it on various points. It's not necessarily a full coverage outsole, but it's basically pretty close to that. And what I found is that on the track, on the road, on kind of some light gravel, anything like that, this shoe did great. It felt very, very comfortable, had plenty of grip. But when the outsole did get a little bit wet, so maybe after rain, then it could get a tiny bit slick. I don't think it's anything to be necessarily super concerned about, but it is something to consider if you were planning on using this in a race and you are going to be running in the rain. I would stay away from any painted lines on the road, as those tend to be a little bit slicker as well. But from an outsole durability standpoint, I'm looking at it now and just kind of checking for any excess wear and tear, and it looks to be fairly durable and have held up through 50 miles. Very, very solid. So I wouldn't be concerned about the longevity of the shoes. And that's another thing that I tend to really like about Brooks, is they do seem to last. PEBA does seem to have a shorter lifespan in terms of foam. So Brooks, with them using more of these EVAs and the nitrogen infused foams, they do seem to have, again, more durability overall than some other shoes. And the craftsmanship of a Brooks shoe is always very, very great. Now, as far as who's this shoe for, well, like I said, I think that the shoe could be a really good option if you are someone who is looking just for a second shoe in your rotation to handle various workout types, but you're not necessarily someone who has like a full 5-shoe rotation where you're looking for a specialized option in each type of workout. There are going to be options that are going to be better for pure intervals and speed work. There are going to be options for, you know, more of your long run or marathon pace long run. But if you want something that can handle really well all of those types, then this might be the best shoe on the market in terms of that pure versatility, where I don't feel like you're sacrificing a lot in other areas. It's kind of like how you can be good at a lot of things, but not necessarily great at a lot of things. And if you want to be great, you have to kind of choose one thing. This is the good at a lot of things shoe, and again, that's not a bad thing. I very much enjoyed the miles in the shoe so far. I think people who are looking for a race day option that is going to give you some good pop, some good responsiveness, that is going to have cushion though and be stable, because there's not really stable racing options out there, this could be a really good option for you. It could be something that you choose, because I think that Brooks did a good job of creating a stable base while still making a faster shoe. If you're a bigger guy and you're looking for something for intervals, and a lot of the lighter weight daily trainers or the lighter weight speed day options are just a little bit too minimal for you, even with the softer foams, they're just a little bit too lightweight and you need more support, Brooks Hyperion Max 2 could be another option for you there. Again, I just think it's a really well-crafted shoe. It's going to be able to handle the wear and tear of someone who's maybe slightly larger, putting daily miles into the shoe, though with the plate being there, I would not use this as a daily use shoe. Now, from a comparison standpoint, I'm going to be honest, I haven't run in a ton of shoes this year with kind of the plate and the super foams. I've run in a lot of the super shoes, but not a lot of kind of the lighter weight, you could probably call these super trainers. Super trainers have kind of multiple categories nowadays. So I'm holding up the Endorphin Pro 4, but just know I'm using this as a visual aid to talk about the Endorphin Speed 4. The Endorphin Speed 4 is going to be lighter than the Hyperion Max 2, and I do think that it's going to be better for faster paces. That being said, I do feel like it is, while stable for a faster shoe, a little bit less stable than the Brooks Hyperion Max 2. The other thing is, while this is not a wide shoe, it's definitely wider than the Endorphin Speed 4. But I think which shoe you go with is just going to come down to the preference of fit and feel underfoot. I do feel like the Endorphin Speed 4 feels a little faster for me underfoot, but the Hyperion Max 2 feels like it's giving me a little bit more protection. So again, it kind of depends on what you're looking for. If I was to maybe do like a downhill race where I wanted more support, more stability, more structure, then the Hyperion Max 2 would be a really, really good shoe for that. But if I was going to do something a little bit quicker, a little bit faster, less vert or anything involved, and less support needed, then the Endorphin Speed 4 is where I would kind of go. Now, while I have the shoe, I have not put any miles on the Hyperion 2 yet, but this is basically going to be your lighter weight daily training companion to the Hyperion Max 2. Some people have said that the Max 2 is better for kind of your long run efforts, and the Hyperion 2 is going to be better for some of your maybe interval style sessions, as it's a lighter weight overall shoe, but they both have that DNA Flash foam. In some ways, what you're kind of looking at, if you're a Nike fan, you're looking at kind of like the Pegasus Plus or Pegasus Turbo line, and then this would be like the Zoom Fly line. So there are going to be similarities. I think Brooks does a better job of kind of having like uniformity across their models. So the Hyperion line very, very much aligns. This could also be a little bit of like a Kinvara Pro versus a Saucony Kinvara, right? Where it's a lighter weight daily trainer, like really supposed to be light on foot, not hold you back so that you can really focus on those faster paces. So if you do like the Hyperion 2 and you're looking for something for longer runs, something with a little bit more support, Hyperion Max 2 could be a good option as well. Now, final thoughts on the Hyperion Max 2. Like I said, I think I've said it a couple of times in this review at this point, it is a shoe that is really good at a lot of things, but maybe not great at one thing. My favorite type of run for the shoe is going to be that long run with some faster paces, not even necessarily marathon paces, but maybe some pickups or something along those lines within the run, because you're going to get the support of the cushion for those longer distances while still having kind of that firmness and that responsive or almost ground feel in the shoe that is going to allow you to propel yourself forward. I also like that this is not a carbon fiber plate. I think some super trainers have started going the carbon fiber plate route, and I don't love running in plated shoes more than maybe once, maybe twice a week. And the plastic plates, you can see, are just, they're not as aggressive. They're not as stiff as those carbon fiber plates. You couldn't really do this with a carbon fiber plated shoe. So you're not going to be stressing your feet or changing the load distribution quite as much. So this is going to be a much more accommodating shoe, and you could maybe use this on some easy days if you needed the extra support, though I still think this is a maybe 2 to max 3 days a week used shoe. Overall, I'm a big fan of the brand Brooks. I just like what they do and how they interact with the community as a whole. And so I am rooting for them, and I am hoping to see them continue to innovate and come out with models kind of in this vein. I think that the Max 2 was a winner, and I am excited to see what they do again, continuing forward with the Hyperion line. But all in all, I don't necessarily have anything to complain about with this shoe. Like I said, I think it's a really good shoe. I've enjoyed the 50 miles that I put in on them so far, and I'm also excited to see how they compare against some of the other lighter weight super trainers in the category. Now, if you've made it to the end of this video and you haven't liked or subscribed or left a comment yet, I would sure appreciate it if you did. And as always, I'm just going to leave you with a quick question, which is, what is your preference on speed-oriented shoes? Do you like a firmer foam and ground feel, or do you prefer something that is going to be a little bit more cushy and bouncy? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks, everybody.